Hello everyone, welcome to this week's webinar. I'm here with Brenndan Cooper. We're at Tiffany Green's Golf Club in Kansas City, Missouri. And as always, we're brought to you by Medicus Golf and Kick-Ax Golf. If you have any questions, just put them in the sidebar, and we'll get to those as soon as we run out of things to talk about.
You gotta hear us first.
So today's subject is going to be talking about how to play golf when you're in pain, or how to play golf with not so much pain.
Mm-hmm.
So you could take, 8 or 9 Advil and
Just call it a day.
call it a day, right? But the most golfers have pain in one of 3 areas. They either have it in their knees, their hips, or their back,
Or all the above.
or all of the above, right? So why don't you give us a little insight, what you tell the players, when they're doing those particular things, and you can relate to an individual part or as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, what we do with our players is you've heard us tell it time and time again, we want our players doing what their body will let them do. We don't ever want you trying to do something that you physically can't do or because of a prior injury. And I can speak for myself is I don't have an ACL in my front knee. So,
That's true.
there you go. So for me in particular, when I get to impact, I've got the alignments are all there and the keys are all there. But, some players may have their lead knee bent a little longer, and that's for me, I have to do that in my case.
Right.
Because if I try to straighten it up too quickly, it kind of twinges just a little bit. So, it's little things like that even though it may look a little bit different, you got to figure out a way to, justify having all these keys and making sure that we're achieving those, even though it may look different.
Right. And so Brenndan has to keep his left knee bent longer through impact. I'm just the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
I have to relieve the bend, because if I get up here and I start going like this, that is super painful.
Yeah.
So I personally can't do that.
And that's one reason why it's easier for Chuck to hit a cut shot than it is for me, because a cut shot for me is a draw base or a straight ball basically.
Yeah, straight.
So the longer the lead knee stays bent, well, that wants to make the path a little more from the inside. Where if Chuck can straighten his lead knee or leg quicker, well, he can now get a little bit more out and hit a little cutter in there. So
right.
Again, it's understanding. If I do this because I have to do it, well, then that's going to be my ball flight.
Well, and a lot of times, when we do this assessment, we ask, do you have any injuries? Have you had any injuries?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any replacement parts? I mean, do you have all these things? And then when the player sets up, they'll show us what they're currently doing, and they'll say, well, that hurts. Well, our job is then to figure out a way to get all these alignments and keys in a way that doesn't hurt them.
Right.
So, I had a hip replacement now 4 months ago. So I used to try to turn a lot with the upper against the lower, not so much of a free turn. I can't do that anymore.
Right.
So now what happens is I turn everything as freely as I can turn it, as far as I can turn it. That relieves the pressure. I don't feel the pain then. So, for a lot of people think, well, I got to turn this 90 and this 45. I got to stretch this stuff out. It might work for somebody, but if you have pain and you're trying to do that, don't do that.
Right.
This isn't rocket science.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Especially for players that have lower back pain, because anytime you're restricting one area and trying to turn the other area, that's going to start compressing and putting some pressure, especially in the lower back. So the players that have back problems, more times than not, we're actually getting them to turn more where they thought that they couldn't turn. But again, if a free turn just like that actually takes pressure off.
It does, because you're not tweaking and winding that thing like a wet dish rag.
Right.
You want some freedom in there.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can free it up, that'll not only eliminate some of the lower back issues, but depending on which hip, mine's a right hip, it can free that up as well. It's the same thing we talked about with the knees. So, you basically have the knees, the hips, and the back, and that's generally where the issues are.
Right.
Right. So there's not really drills you can do necessarily, but you just have to get out, swing the club. If doing this hurts, well then don't do that. Go over this way more.
Yeah.
Do whatever you have to do to eliminate or help alleviate the pain, but still maintain your keys, maintain your impact alignment.
Exactly. Make sure you're always monitoring your keys, keep those in check. But then, just like Chuck said, if you're doing something and it hurts, well, try to put yourself in the opposite spot.
Right.
And say, oh, that feels better. You know, again, in my case, if I go to impact and that hurts, but my keys are good, well, what do I got to do to take some pain out of here? Oh, that's better. That's where I need to be.
Right.
So again, it's, you know, we did a webinar, oh man, I've slept since then, several months ago, where it was differences and similarities and differences. Right. And again, you know, everybody's got some differences, but the key similarities are always there.
Right, right. So again, you know, we get a lot of people that say they either can't turn, or we get people say, well, I've got a bad back. Well, I don't know of any golfer that has ever gotten a bad back from making a functional, efficient swing.
Mm-hmm.
I see a lot of injuries from people that are making non-efficient swings.
Right, yeah. Normally, you know, because the human body, the way it's designed, if I face this way now, if I turn to the camera, that's literally what the body's doing in the golf swing. Right. The only difference is we're in posture. Right. And just like Chuck said, there's probably 9 out of 10 people that do have back problems, they can make that move.
Yeah, I mean, we see it every day. We see somebody set up to the ball and they look like this at the top of the swing, but yet when we tell them to turn, they don't turn and look at somebody like this. They turn like this right now. Stretch your arms out, boom, there's the top of your backswing. Yeah. Yeah. It's not that hard. All right, we have a ton of questions, so let's get started on those. Okay, our first question is from John. Hip hurts on the outside of the right side when I turn properly. Any stretches that would help? Okay, well, that's the same side I have, John. So if your hip is hurting here, A, go see your doctor, okay? I mean, it could be a myriad of things. But B, if you allow your hips to turn as far as you can, I'm going to do it this direction. I'm going to put this right here on my belt buckle. See if you can turn your golf club or your navel dead facing away from the target. That'll take out some of that pressure in there. Yeah. Okay. Anything else you want to add? No,
the only thing I would add to it is don't worry about trying to keep your lead foot on the ground. If the heel needs to get pulled up, let it be pulled up. Right. Okay, to encourage that turn.
Right. We're not talking about doing this.
No. Notice I said pull.
Yeah, we don't need any Elvis moves. Okay.
We see enough of those.
Yeah, plenty of those. All right, the next question is from Travis. Do you think it would be possible to play golf with limited ability to turn back and through to the ball? I have a lot of pain and stiffness, which limits me fully turning back and then completing my swing in a normal finish. So doctors say that playing golf will not hurt my back. I enjoy the game and would still like to play social and for health reasons. And thanks, Travis.
Well, Travis, I think, again, it's going to be just like what Chuck just got done showing. And to get the feel, I think the best thing to do is just stand up without a club. And again, I'll face this way. And now just turn and see how far you can turn facing the other direction. Right. And when I did this, here's my belt buckle. My chest is facing perfectly to the camera, and my lead heel's pulled up. So if I do it this way and turn to Chuck, well, that's pretty much the motion right there. Now, from here, gradually start getting into a golf posture and do that same move. Right. The only trick is when you do it, don't just let the head kind of kick up. But, you know, you'll be amazed that you probably can make that move. Now, let's say that you can only go to right here. Well, that's it for you. Right. You know, don't try to go overdo it. I mean, you may need to stretch out some muscles, but if you get to a point where, well, that's as far as I can go, well, that's as far as you go. Yeah. And again, if you're turning freely, there shouldn't be anything in there constricting. Mm-hmm. A great way to work on that is just put a club across your shoulders like this, because a lot of people think this is a turn. They just pick the club up, okay? Put a club across your shoulders, turn as far as you can to the right, as far as you can to the left, in golf posture. As far as you can, as far as you can. If you feel some limiting, take your trail foot and turn it out
20 degrees or so. That will also free the hip up going back.
Mhm.
If you turn 20 degrees on your forward foot, now you've got free turn and full mobility in both directions. And if you're still tight or have some tightness, just see a sports medicine guy or gal, okay, have them put you through a physical screen and find out, what could be causing that. 9 times out of 10 is you're creating too much tension in your body, okay? All right, next one. Okay, this question is from Gilly. Set up for a 50-yard shot and what club?
Depends on how far you hit it, 50 yards.
Exactly. Depends on the trajectory you want.
Right. Well, let's just say just basic shot.
Okay, so you could take a wedge, sand wedge, pitching wedge, gap wedge, whatever. You could hit your 4-iron 50 yards if you want.
Yeah, yeah. It just depends. I mean, if you're hitting a 50-yard shot, more times than not, that's not going to be a full swing.
Right.
So if you're looking to get an idea on if there's any difference between a finesse wedge, which is kind of what we think we may be dealing with, versus a standard wedge shot, there's not much difference.
Right.
The biggest thing would be definitely on ball position. I kind of took this one. Did you want to
go right ahead.
For standard shots, players, I'd like to see it just keep it in the middle. Just keep right under the sternum. Keep it simple there. One thing that we really try to get our players to do is set more pressure on the lead leg and just keep it there. Right. The swing is going to be so short or smaller than a full swing, you don't have time to do a lot of weight transfer or pressure transfer. So just set the weight on the front foot. Set your hands just a little bit in front of the ball. Now, as you go back, it's going to be a smaller backswing. Just shorten it up from what a normal full-length swing would be. But at the same time, keep the pressure right here. Right. And so when I'm going down, I'm feeling that pressure stay there, but also increase. Right. And so what that'll do now is that will get my hands a little bit more in front of it and more descending blow on the ball.
Right. So I would suggest you go out to the range or go out to a field and hit some shots with all your wedges. But as Brendan said, set up a little bit heavy on the target side. And you want to feel like your hands are at 9 o'clock at the top of the backswing. All right, and then from there, hit your shots. And then pace off to see which club at 9 o'clock with your hands hits the ball 50 yards. I mean, that's pretty much all you have to do. And you should, and depending on the player, they could have 12 to 15 yards between clubs. Right. Between your lob and your sand, your gap and your pitch or whatever. If you find out you're hitting it 40 yards with your sand wedge and 52 yards with your gap wedge, well, that tells you should be using a gap wedge. Don't swing the sand wedge harder or longer, just swing the gap wedge. Yeah. Okay. All right, next question. Okay, this one is from Dave. Do you have any tips for driving the ball low?
Well, you want this one?
Sure.
Okay.
All right. So if I'm going to hit a lower shot, and I don't have a driver, but we'll use the iron here. You can see this. All right. So if I'm going to hit a lower flighted driver, I'm just going to ask you this question. You can nod your head and tell yourself yes or no. If I wanted to hit it higher, would I come into impact more like this or more like this?
I'm nodding my head in case you didn't.
Okay, so you'll notice on my left shoulder stays lower, my target side shoulder stays lower, longer. And if I want to hit it higher, I'm going to have a little more of the upper body tilted back. You don't want to tilt back so much that you change the ball position from where it started though. And you don't want to move ahead of the ball this way. So again, you can use the same ball position basically. Just change what you're doing with your shoulders at impact. Yeah. Higher ball flight, lower ball flight.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way to do it.
That's the easiest, and a lot of times people will suggest just moving ball position, but with the driver, you start moving ball too much. Now it's starting to mess up the path a little bit and the face and the angle of attack. Right. And so now you're going to start producing flights, whether it's draws or fades that you're not really expecting. But just like Chuck said, if you can get a feel for kind of where these points are at impact or starting on the downswing, that's going to start just changing trajectory. without having to mess around too much with ball position.
And just get a visualization. If there was a tree 20 yards in front of you, and you had to hit it over the top of that tree, would it look more like this, or would it look more like this, right? So just visualize. If I'm trying to hit a low shot, do it in slow enough motion that you can see the differences, right?
Yeah.
So visualize trying to hit it over a big tree for a high shot, trying to hit it under the tree for the low shot.
Yep.
Okay. All right, next question. All right, this one is from John. For a right-hander, should you turn your right butt cheek toward your left heel?
Yes, if you can. I mean, again, if the way the body works, and if I stand up straight up and down, now if I just turn, you can see how my right's right beside me. There you go. So now I'll do it with my arms here. So now if I just turn, you can see how I created a little bit of space there with that shaft that Chuck's holding. So definitely my right butt cheek is definitely turning towards my lead heel or towards the target. Right. Greg Norman, who's probably arguably the greatest driver under pressure. You've told this story many times, where he would literally tell himself before he took the club back, he would say right pocket back or right pocket to the target, something along those lines. Right. And that's what he was trying to feel, is he was trying to feel getting this hip or the right butt cheek going back behind him, almost facing towards the target.
Right. Now, I would caution you about doing too much. In other words, don't feel like you're going to go that far with it, okay? Because you just moved everything over there.
Then you will be having some pain.
But again, if you just stand up and turn your body, you're going to create a space. Yeah. So your right cheek is going towards your left heel. Okay. All right, next question. Okay, and this one is from Shep. Weight shift. Okay, so Shep, weight shift. What do you want to know? Is there a weight shift? Does it shift? How much does it shift? I mean, there's a lot of meaning there.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. Weight and pressure are only the same in a static environment. Mm-hmm. As soon as you start moving, it's not about weight, it's about pressure. A lot of people still use the term weight shift, but it's more about moving your pressure. So your pressure moves, okay, and we demonstrated this a couple of times. So right now you have what's called a center of pressure. It's hanging right between my feet. So now if I have a club that has weight and I start a backswing, you'll see how that center of pressure, how this club moved over towards my right foot. That means I have more pressure in this right foot. Now as I start down, it equalizes, and as I start moving the other direction, you can see that this club is now up here. So that means I have more pressure up here. So the pressure drill that we've used a number of times is picking up your feet while you're swinging the club. Okay, pick the left foot up in the backswing, put it down, pick the right foot up. Do that and you'll feel how the pressure moves back and forth.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, next question. There he is, air. How do you swing the ball? How do you swing through the ball instead of hitting at the ball?
Well, I mean, to Chuck and I, as far as, follow through, to us, it's the point when both arms are straight. So that's post-impact, both arms are straight. So to us, that's follow through. Anything after that is cosmetic. Yeah. But again, we've had people ask before, I have a tendency to stop at the ball. Well, again, don't visualize that you're trying to hit ball. Just visualize you're going through the golf ball. Right. Again, if I'm making a swing, I'm trying to go through it, and I got both arms straight. Well, that could be my follow through right there. Right. So I don't. A lot of times when people are trying to hit at it, well, this is more of a hit at it. Right. This is going through it and allowing all the pressure and allowing the hands and the arms to get through the golf ball here. Yeah, and you can do this out on the range or in a field. I'm not going to use a club. I'm actually going to go that way. So imagine you have a golf club. So if I want to swing through it, when I get through, that club's going that way. Okay, that's going through the ball. Yep. All right, if I'm swinging down, and we'll do this out here too. We'll show people how the club enters the ground. If I'm doing this, that's just going at the ball. And you're laying the sod right over it.
So, yeah, usually it's the biggest fat shot you probably ever hit.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just remember, through is going through,
Yeah.
okay, not at.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, next question. Greer, I would like to focus on hip pain if possible. We've already talked a couple of things about that in this segment, Greer, and again, depending on your hip. Now, again, mine's right. Let's say yours is the left hip. So if you get up here and moving over here hurts that hip, then guess what? Don't do it.
Yeah.
Move the ball farther back. Feel like you have a little bit more rotation in your hips and less sliding motion in that hip.
Yeah, definitely. Anytime, with the legs or the hips, you start adding the slide element, that's normally the part that starts hurting.
Right.
Again, if the turning motion itself, whether it be if you have a knee problem, hip problem, or back problem, the actual turning part is not the part that makes it hurt. It's when you do the turn and add some sort of lateral movement going side to side, that's when things start getting pressurized, if you will.
Right. And, when you get the joints, your ankle, knee, and hip joint out of alignment, this would be out of a line, that would be out of a line. Okay.
That looked like it hurt.
Yeah. You want them in a line. I mean, I have them in a line. They're diagonal. They're angled backwards. They're not angled forward.
Yeah.
So less slide and a little more turn. And because if it's on your left hip, and because you can't move as far forward as you probably need to move, then that means you need to move the ball, position the ball back farther, or you'll never get to it. You get a lot of bad shots.
And to kind of tie in with our follow-through part that we just talked about, your follow-through may only be to here.
Right.
Because if you try going this way with it, then you will start putting a little more pressure there. So
Right.
That's just a little food for thought.
Okay, next question. This one is from Ken. The better players always keep the club outside their hands. And the takeaway is an upward wrist cock part of it. My arms seem to travel away from my body in order to keep the club from getting behind me. We talked a little bit about this last week. And basically all you're trying to do is if you had the club stuck in your navel like this, and you move this way, okay, well, you can see the club is outside my hands. Now, if I just move my hands and arms only, the club wants to start moving behind. So you move everything together, and then from here, it's actually not a wrist motion. It is your right elbow folding upward.
Yeah.
So your right elbow folds while you're applying pressure to your target side thumb with your pad here, your thumb pad. So it kind of looks, so if my arm folded like this, you can see how both arms are folded. Now I'm just going to take this hand and I'm going to push against that thumb. That's going to give me the length and the radius to the shot. So the butt of the club and my navel and everything start moving together off the ball. Then the right arm folds up and I'm applying pressure. That's going to maintain the length, and that's going to get the club from working behind you with the hands and arms too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and again, there's a lot of things going on here. So let's say, for instance, that we tested you, and as you took the club back, your hands went like this. That means that's where the club would be. If we took you back and your hands went like this, then that's where the club would be. You still see the club is still outside my hands. If we took you back and your hands rotated like this, you can see the club is still outside my hands because I haven't done anything extraneous as far as trying to rotate the club face.
Right.
Okay. Looks like we have one more question here. Does angled hinging require a hitting motion? Air.
You're flirting here, Air.
No, it does not. You can use any of the hinge actions or club face motions with hitting or swinging.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you just got to know what the ball flight is going to produce. So you can actually produce a draw with what we would call an angled hinge. You could actually produce a fade with a horizontal hinge.
Yeah.
If they're done improperly. Okay. So yes, you can use those with anything. Okay. All right. I think that's it for this week. We will not have one next week, Thanksgiving weekend.
Gobble, gobble.
We will not have one Christmas weekend as well, because last year at Thanksgiving, there was only 3 people here. Diana, which is in California, she's operating this, and Brenda and I. That was pretty much it.
I can't even remember last year.
Yeah, I think Diana said it was she and I, basically. So.
Oh, yeah, it may have been.
But anyway, not gonna have it. Chiefs had a big win this last weekend, so again, it's Red Friday.
Notice I'm still wearing black until the Cowboys get a win.
Yeah, Cowboys are going for 1 in a row this week. All right, we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.